All right, so you are listening to a guitar lesson sort of episode, which is kind of new for me. I've never done this before, and it's definitely something I won't claim to be an expert at, but I do have a valuable guitar tip for you. And it's quite simple, straightforward kind of stuff. First lesson, focus on clean and accurate playing. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced player, I think you should, maybe not always, but generally prioritize clean and accurate playing over speed. And then, of course, you can, practice playing faster further down the road. And that's true, again, if you're a beginner or an experienced player. It's probably good to start learning just about anything at a bit of a slower pace, and then, you can better appreciate the nuances to it first that way, and then you can, become a Speedy Gonzalez type or, whatever, the fastest gun in the West. You can start by playing slowly and make sure each note rings out clearly without any unintentional buzzing or muted strings or open strings. One of my, regular problems with guitar playing is the pesky open string. And I still struggle with that all these years later after, playing guitar since I was 13 years old. I still occasionally mess up and there's an open string where I didn't intend it to be. Although, to be honest, that can be used to your advantage. It can create some interesting dissonance. It can add some rough patches to a piece to make it a little bit more unique. But you also want to be able to avoid that a lot of the time. There are definitely some pieces that you're going to do where you're going to want to basically be able to play them flawlessly. And even if you're like me and you're sort of a sloppy musician, you still want to have the option of playing neatly a lot of the time. And I suppose that's one way to look at it too, is because I'm a sloppy guitarist, I have to try harder to play, a little bit more neat, than like a guitarist who's like sort of a natural neat freak. I actually still have to put more effort if I want to be able to play clean because it's less natural for me. And I would assume that would be true of any other sort of sloppy musicians out there too. So you can gradually increase your speed as you gain control. So don't worry about it. I'm not saying, you should always play slow or whatever. Who wants to do that, Unless you're in a modern pop band or something, in which case you're probably always playing at a moderate tempo, which, is one of the reasons why the speed metal and thrash metal and hair metal bands were always zipping around with those guitar solos, and, punk bands too would play at fast speeds. Because if you're always playing at a moderate tempo and just always James Tayloring it, well, it ends up being some boring stuff after a while. At least if you're a musician, I think most people want to branch out and add some flash to whatever they're doing, So that's one of the reasons why it's good to work on this technique. It'll help you build a solid foundation and improve your overall technique, making it easier to play more complex pieces in the future. Or, for that matter, it'll make it easier to play simpler pieces in the future, too. It's not always about how complex or how simple something is. You just want to be able to play well, whatever genre you're at. So remember, speed is a byproduct of accuracy and control. For the most part. Obviously, you can play a fast flutter of nonsensical notes, and sometimes that can work, but sometimes you want to have that accuracy and control as an option. So take your time, practice with a metronome if you must, but at the same time, I would advise you to not over-rely on a metronome. There's something to be said about having a natural rhythm, which is one of the reasons why blues music, to some people's ears, is a superior form, because, a lot of these old-timey blues musicians, they didn't play to a metronome or whatever. In fact, they, if you listen to a lot of those songs, they didn't always have their guitars in tune and stuff like that, but that really helped it sound raw. But at the same time, even those more raw blues guitarists, they knew how to play neat at a lot of points in their careers, at least in many cases. And, they would pay attention to the quality of their playing and adjust it accordingly. When it comes to like a guitarist like Chuck Berry or somebody like that, he was kind of a sloppy guitarist, to be honest. I mean, that's just the way it is. And, Neil Young was accused of being a sloppy guitarist, although to my ear, he's not quite as sloppy as some people make him out to be. And, Frank Zappa definitely had moments where, it definitely seemed like he was sloppy. But at the same time, I think for the most part, they knew what they were doing, and that's really something that can be said about most quality musicians. They know what they're doing, at least much of the time. Of course, there are moments where you'll just want to branch out and just be completely insane and do whatever, just completely free form. That has its place too. But you should want the option of, playing fast and playing accurately and being able to play conventionally at times. It's better to play something slowly and flawlessly than to rush through it and make a bunch of mistakes and make sounds that you actually don't want to hear. So, I guess I'm going to finish this off by just randomly playing just some improv on my tenor guitar, which is not a conventional guitar. It's actually got 4 strings, and we'll see what I do here. Doesn't that sound nice? Yep, that was just me improvising. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if not, oh well. Life is tough. You don't always get what you want. But that's the end of the first guitar lesson that I'm going to do as a special episode of my podcast. We'll see if I continue doing this. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, have a holly jolly Christmas.